one big move by the regulator has been to go for local routing of transactions in Pakistan of international payment schemes. This has been happening in many countries. It's the natural phenomenon, and after especially what happened in Russia, where Mir had to take over overnight almost. This is now understood that we have to safeguard our own national interests first, and there's no second thoughts about it from everybody. So what do? So we encourage PayPal to take over. But what about those millions of cards? Right now, PayPal has about 12 million cards, active cards in Pakistan, out of a landscape of say about 55, 60 million. So 20% market share already PayPal has. There are a lot more international scheme cards. And by the way, this has happened in the UAE, in Qatar, in Russia, of course, and in many other countries. This process is going on where domestic schemes or domestic switches have taken over the routing of transactions. So it's just now saying that all cards operating in Pakistan, whenever they run into a POS, so whether it has an X or a Y or a Z on the card, doesn't matter. It will be routed locally. The funds are local, the settlement has to be local, the merchant is local, the disputes are local. One of the lowest tax to GDP ratios in the world. That's where the journey starts, if you like. So people don't want to come into the tax net. That's one big issue. Couple that with certain religious reasons also, people don't really converge towards banking. Plus the fact that we have very little financial inclusion. So the bottom of the pyramid is totally devoid of any exposure to banking services. So hence this translation into digital or absence of digital services. So it's a natural progression. Having said that, things have changed a lot, and if you really want to know what's happening, go and look at the way the scratch cards or the telcos are being used. So look at the usage of SIMs, for example. So something is going right there and wrong here. Now, what is that? Because probably the telcos have been able to actually penetrate into the bottom of the pyramid. So why is it that banking services couldn't? Common man does not want to walk into a branch where the doors are closed and where there's AC inside. So branches banking tried to change that, but again there were so many restrictions, and then the pricing was so high for a funds transfer. It still is. So there are lots of pricing and associated issues. But having said that, there's still lots which could be done even with these restrictions. And I think one of the initiatives in the National Financial Inclusion Strategy by the State Bank has been to use technology and the levers of technology to take this towards the lower end of the market. So, for example, bringing in a local domestic scheme in 2016-17 onwards. Now, that's one attempt at financial inclusion, and we've been able to penetrate the market to quite a degree. 20% cards plus actually are now PayPal cards. But there's still a long way to go. So by issuing the cards to the lower end of the strata, can we increase the usage of banking services by the masses, for example? Also, what else can we do to make it more conducive to use digital channels? So, for example, the government of Punjab did a fantastic job when they lowered the sales tax to 5%. And it's amazing the sort of uptake that we've seen on card usage, for example, in restaurants and shops there. It's like you're all dressed up and nowhere to go. This is what's happened in the cards industry. Everybody is an issuer. Whichever bank or EMI appears on the scene, the first job is issue cards. So as a result, we have, mashallah, now 60 million cards here and there. Acha ji, cards issue ho gaye. But where do you spend them? So we started in the 90s, Bank of America and that model, and we reached 30,000 point of sales, terminals. And that lasted for another 15 to 20 years. All of 2000s, you pick up the figures, 30,000 POS, 25,000 POS. Most of them worth nothing because they've been long depreciated. But that was the story for Pakistan. Nowhere could you spend the card except at big merchants, and even there you had three POSs competing for business. So the average POS per shop was 2.6 POSs per shop. And then regulators stepped in, and eventually they had this circular out in early 2020. And therefore, the banks were given targets and they ratcheted up. And now we have 130,000 POSs in Pakistan. But is that the real revolution? The acquiring piece was all messed up in Pakistan. So you had these few large banks acquiring transactions, and that remained for a number of years. I have been heading acquiring business in two banks at least. It's a zero-sum game. But QR is ubiquitous, it's cheap, and it's easy to adopt because of the smartphone revolution. And you've seen, for example, India is a great example of how they've spread over the merchant landscape. So we went out and talked to a lot of merchant aggregators. So for your example, you have a particular aggregator which owns the schooling sector. There's another group of aggregators which owns the Kiryana stores or the sabzi sellers or any other for that matter. So we spoke to the aggregators. They were very keen because they did not want to take a license themselves. The cost is too high to be regulated. And by the way, I think it's the job of the non-bank players here who can actually go out and do the Kiryana stores and the Agrawallas and the Nanbais and the chemists of Pakistan. There are 5 million establishments at least who are eligible, even more. आपने तो देखी वो कहानियाँ कि फकीर भी लिए QR घूम रहा है और ठेले वाला भी. बट बेसिकली मिडिल साइज शॉप्स भी कर लें तो बहुत बड़ी मार्केट है. लेकिन जो असल काम होगा ना वो फील्ड लेवल पे होगा. और ये जो एग्रीगेटर्स मर्चेंट्स के पॉकेट्स ओन करते हैं, हाँ, ये लोग जब जाएंगे और जब इसको आम करेंगे और उनको डेमो के थ्रू दिखाएंगे. अच्छा, ये सबसे आसान ऐप बेस्ड भी है. ये जो QR है ये ऐप बेस्ड भी है, पॉस बेस्ड भी है, IBAN बेस्ड भी है. सो जब ऐप चलेगी मर्चेंट की, और हर एग्रीगेटर बड़ा वाला अपनी अपनी मर्चेंट ऐप बना रहा है, so things will be easy. इसका SDK भी available होगा, banks will be able to use it. So there's a lot of things to roll out in due course. जो developed economies हैं वहाँ पे B2B ने लीड लिया और फिर B2C आया. हमारे यहाँ मसला ये कि B2B, because of again documentation issues and the fact that nobody tried, and the fact that the cash management people want a hegemony over what we call bank-to-bank cash management transactions. The issue is B2B. Internet transactions, 90% of payments on internet are B2B. 90%. So आप कहते हैं रिटेल बहुत बड़ा है, लेकिन that's only 10%. The rest is all huge, humongous purchasing going on within the countries and cross border. हमारे यहाँ अनफॉर्चुनेटली ये साइड डेवलप ही नहीं हुई. सारा जो फोकस है, सारा जो ग्लैमर है वो B2C ले जाता है, लेकिन एक्चुअल काम जो कुछ बड़े अच्छे एग्रीगेटर्स एंड फिनटेक्स हैं जो कर रहे हैं उस पर, एंड यू विल सी द रिजल्ट्स. अगेन दोज बैंक्स विच हैव स्मेल्ट द कॉफ़ी आर एट इट, एंड यू विल सी फिनोमिनल चेंजेस ऑन द B2B फ्रंट. एडिक्वेट कॉम्पनसेशन होनी चाहिए और सर्विसेज वैल्यू एडिड होनी चाहिए. अगर मर्चेंट के पास QR चल पड़ता है और बहुत सारे लोग जो कैश नहीं कैरी कर सकते या चेंज नहीं होता, तो ये जब तक लो टिकट पर प्रोलिफरेट नहीं करेगा, आप लाखों की बात ना करें, आप बात करें अब सैकड़ों की. और QR की ब्यूटी ये है कि इतना सस्ता है कि इसमें कॉस्ट ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन बहुत चीप है. रेगुलेटर से आप बात करें, वो कहेंगे 3 to 4% इज़ द कॉस्ट ऑफ अ कैश ट्रांजैक्शन. यहाँ हम बात करें मैक्सिमम 1% की. और इंस्टेंट क्रेडिट टू योर अकाउंट, ये भी आपको फिक्र नहीं कि आपको रात का वक्त है, कैश कैरी करना है, दुकान बंद करें, लेके जाना है. सो कस्टमर के लिए ऑब्वियसली कन्वीनियंस, लेके कुछ कैरी नहीं करना. सो देयर इज लॉट्स गोइंग ऑन.